All right, today I am joined by a special guest to help us better understand all of this government data that's coming out from Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel about the Russiagate story. I know a lot of us want to see people go to jail. I know John, my guest, who went to jail for being a truth teller and a whistleblower, wants to see this. John, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Stephen. It's a pleasure. Good to see you again.
Yes, absolutely. Just some background for my audience. John Kiriakou is a former CIA spy and whistleblower. He spent time in jail because he blew the whistle on the torture program under George W. Bush. He's also authored several books. I'm seeing just out from Kash Patel that they're now finding all this documentation that Hillary Clinton was under three major investigations from different agencies for major crimes. At the same time, she was selling uranium to Russia. Her husband, former President Bill Clinton, was receiving huge amounts of money for speaking in Russia. The Clinton Foundation was running this pay-to-play, bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars. And then Obama's Justice Department says, shut it all down. Stop investigating her. We don't want any of this coming out to the American public. What are your thoughts on all of that?
You know, the fix was in from the very beginning. There are so many crimes here that you're talking about, and serious crimes at that, felonies. It's just unfathomable that these crimes, the investigations of these crimes would not be pursued. And now that Donald Trump is in the White House and there is no feeling of necessity to protect the likes of the Clintons or John Brennan or Comey or Clapper or any of the others, maybe the wheels of justice can continue to turn. I will say there's one thing that I think is important that people aren't really talking about, and that is the fact that when word first leaked out of the Justice Department that this investigation, at first into Brennan and Comey, was going forward, the crime that was being alleged was lying to Congress. Now, that can be a felony. It usually isn't. It's usually a misdemeanor. And the federal sentencing guidelines call for a sentence of 0 months. Okay, you can go look at the chart on the DOJ website. 0 months. You might get 6 to 12 months of probation, and even then it's probably going to be unsupervised probation. So it's not even a slap on the hand. Now what we're talking about is a series of major violations of the Espionage Act, a very serious Title 18 crime that is punishable in this case by sentences of up to 5 years in prison, 10 years if it's charged under a different subsection, and they could run consecutively. So we're talking about very serious crimes here. And I'll add one thing, and God forgive me for gloating. I shouldn't gloat. But when I was arrested in 2012 by the Obama administration, and I was charged with 3 counts of espionage, I was looking at 45 years in prison. The judge in my case, this was in the Eastern District of Virginia, Judge Leonie Brinkema, a hanging judge. She said in the very first hearing that she would not respect precedent that was set in the Tom Drake case in the Federal District of Maryland, where the judge there said that Tom could only be prosecuted if the government could prove mens rea, if they could prove that he meant to violate the law. Okay, it was clear that I never meant to violate the law. Point one. Point two, she said that it was possible, this was in response to a question from my attorneys, it was possible for a person to commit espionage accidentally. And then she said for the purpose of the prosecution, she was going to define espionage thusly: providing national defense information to any person not entitled to receive it. Period. Whether you did it on purpose or you didn't on purpose, whether there was there was a threat to the national security or no threat to the national security or damage. If you did it, you did it. And so she had me. Now, they ended up dropping the espionage charges against me because I hadn't committed espionage. But what Brennan and Clapper and Comey and Clinton are accused of doing by Judge Brinkema's precedent-setting decision is committing espionage. And so this case is far more serious than people realize.
Okay. I want to get deeper into that. Let me roll a clip between John Solomon and Glenn Beck about the Hillary Clinton situation, and then we'll react to it.
What is the next thing we look for? What's the next domino to fall?
When you wake up in the morning, you're going to see perhaps the most stunning document I've seen. It's an FBI timeline. It lays out all of the political interference in the other Clinton case that we never talk about. We always talk about Clinton emails, but the bigger case that the FBI had, 3 separate FBI offices were working on political corruption, looking at the Clinton Foundation as a corrupt organization collecting money in a pay-to-play scheme. You're going to know the names of people who said, shut it down, who blocked the FBI from carrying out a lawfully predicated 3 investigations. When you see that, I have to tell you, I knew it existed. I didn't know how dramatic it was. People are going to see that in the morning, and I think it's going to wake us up to the other reality. We protected the Democrats in this same illusion. The goal was not only to harm the Republicans and conservatives, it was to protect Democrats who may have engaged in wrongdoing.
Yeah, I said that earlier in the show, that I think part of it was to kick dust or dirt over the trail. It wasn't just Donald Trump.
That's exactly the right way to look at it.
Yeah. Who's releasing this? Where's this report coming from?
It'll come out from Just the News. It's an FBI document that we've been able to obtain, and it's a timeline. It is chilling to read. It really is.
I would love to have you on the air tomorrow to explain that to me on the radio.
Count me in.
So he said something really interesting there. So not only was this election interference, this was a cover-up specifically of Democrats, but also in the name of getting Trump, as Glenn Beck said, they were kicking dust over the trail. They needed all of this Russia, Clinton Foundation, high speaking fees, uranium, all of that, Benghazi, the 30,000, it all had to be covered up. And so in order to cover it up, they put the spotlight on Donald Trump. Do you think that's what was really happening?
Absolutely, yes. And there's a word for that. It's called conspiracy. And that's another 5 years per charge on top of the other charges. I think that's exactly what they were going to do. And I'll tell you another thing that I remember. Well, first of all, I'll tell you one of the things that I learned very on in my own case was both sides, the FBI and the defense, the very first thing they do, literally, is to make a timeline. Because you can constantly add to the timeline, and just the timeline, by the end of it, will tell the entire story. The entire defense is contained in the timeline. The entire prosecution is contained in the timeline. That's what they were doing on the Clintons, was coming up with a timeline. That tells me that the investigation was very far advanced. And one other thing that I remember that I occasionally reflect on, it was just days before the 2016 election, the government of Qatar announced a donation to the Clinton Foundation of $500 million. Why? Pay to play. That's why. Like everybody else, the Qataris believed that Hillary Clinton was going to be president, and by God, $500 million in cash was going to give them direct entree into the Oval Office. So yeah, this went very deep. This is not something that they just, were winging. This was well thought out, well planned. They just didn't think Donald Trump was going to win and turn it on them.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank goodness he did, and thank goodness he won a second time. Let me go a little bit deeper here. I feel that between Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, James Comey, James Clapper, John Brennan, others, the strongest case for somebody going to jail, in my opinion, is probably John Brennan and Senator Adam Schiff. What are your thoughts on all of those names, and who is most likely to go down?
I think Brennan's most likely to go down. He appears to have been the ringleader in this whole thing. He appears to be the one that actually conceived of the conspiracy and then carried it out. So I think he's going to be the easiest one to take down. Comey, I think, is going to be difficult because Comey can argue that, he was just following the evidence wherever the evidence was leading him. He had to misspeak before Congress so as not to jeopardize the investigation. He actually has a defense, probably, even if it's a lie. It's probably a defense. Schiff is new. Now, I'm biased. I loathe Adam Schiff. But Adam Schiff
I do too, just to be clear.
And I admit my bias. But Adam Schiff is exactly the kind of person that our country doesn't need and shouldn't want on Capitol Hill, because he knew that the whole Russiagate scenario was a lie. Of course he did. He's an attorney, for God's sake. And he was on the Intelligence Committee. So he knew it was a lie, and yet he perpetuated it in public. So at the very least, there ought to be discussion of a conspiracy charge against Adam Schiff.
Yeah. One thing that I think is interesting based on documents in the last week, John, is it appears that John Brennan, he took the intel from, okay, we got to cover up for Hillary Clinton. Obama is mad that Biden or that Trump won. And so you have the head of the CIA crafting this story. Then you have Adam Schiff, who we just learned believed he would be the next head of the CIA if Hillary Clinton won.
That's right.
These two start conspiring to take out a sitting president. I think that's where there could be a conspiracy connection.
Yeah, I think so too. I hope that there is time left in this administration. We're a little bit more than a little bit less than 3.5 years from the end of the administration. So I hope there's time to really bring this to fruition, because these are very serious charges. I used the word coup, the words coup attempt last week on a podcast. I don't think I'm overstating it by saying this was an attempted coup in 2016, and it should be taken seriously and it should be punished severely. The American people, at the very least, are owed the truth as to what these officials were doing, apparently in the name of the American people.
I had a friend of yours, Russ Tice, on recently, and he wrote you in prison. He believed that you were innocent. He, did everything that he could, but he was telling me, you think the NSA doesn't have all this dirt on Hillary Clinton, those emails, all
right.
of that stuff. So why aren't they? That was my question to him. Why aren't they releasing that? And he said, because they use all of this to control the board the way they want it, not the way that Trump wants it. So Trump may want justice and these to come out, but the deep state says we're still in control and we're not helping you take out these names.
There it is, right there. There it is. Now, NSA can argue disingenuously. I shouldn't be smiling because it's not funny, but they can argue disingenuously that, well, even if we have the information, it was collected incidentally because our charter says and American law says we can't collect on American citizens. Well, that's practically all they do is collect on American citizens. It's no secret that they built this gigantic facility in the Utah desert that has enough storage to hold every phone call, every email, every text message, every piece of metadata from every American for the next 500 years. They didn't accidentally build that. They built that on purpose. And when questioned, they would just say 9/11.
Yeah.
And Congress would say, oh, yes, 9/11. Yes, go ahead. Here's another $5 billion. Go ahead and spend that. And we'll give you 5 more at the end of it. So, yeah, remember, as you just said, NSA is a part of the deep state, an integral part of the deep state. And they don't see their job as helping Donald Trump. If they have information on Hillary Clinton, then they'll say, well, we need a warrant or a court order. Well, we just can't go digging through the Cray computer memories and, looking for information on Hillary Clinton, completely disingenuous. Of course they have the information.
Hey friends, it's Stephen Gardner here, and today I want to tell you about something really exciting. I've just partnered with Monetary Gold, one of the top names in physical gold and silver. Why? Because I believe now more than ever, Americans need real protection. From inflation to market volatility to politicians spending us deeper and deeper into debt. Gold has stood the test of time. It's not just an asset, it's security, it's independence, it's peace of mind. And Monetary Gold makes the process simple, direct, and secure. Here's what I want you to do. Go to StephenLovesGold.com. That's StephenLovesGold.com and claim your free gold IRA guide, or call 800-608-1770 right now to speak with a real specialist who will answer your questions and help you get started. Don't wait. Protect your future with something real. Okay, interesting. I live within 30 minutes of that NSA data collection. It's massive. It's ugly. They've got police out front, helicopters running patterns every couple hours. They don't want anyone getting in there and knowing what they have.
No, and we can only imagine and speculate as to what they have. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they're sucking up millions of gallons of water from Utah Lake. They suck it in there. It runs through the whole system to cool those computers, and then they shoot it back out into the lake. Pretty wild. Okay, we talked about Brennan and Schiff. I learned this week that former DNI James Clapper, he played a major role in Bush's weapons of mass destruction lie. He played a role in the Russia hoax on Trump, and played a major role in the Hunter Biden laptop cover-up.
Yep.
Is this guy going to be held accountable? Your thoughts on James Clapper?
Oh, I sure hope so. And I fear that the Justice Department may think that Clapper might be a bridge too far. You'll remember that he was asked directly in an open hearing before the Senate Intelligence Committee whether or not NSA was collecting the communications of American citizens. And he said no. I mean, you can say, well, Senator, that's my response would be classified one way or the other, and I'm happy to go over it with you in closed session. He didn't say that. He just said no. And when he was challenged later and said, well, look, the true answer was yes. He said, well, no, saying no was as close to the truth as I could get without revealing classified information. So you committed a felony by lying under oath to a sitting member of your oversight committee. So at the very least, I mean, the statute of limitations is over now. You know, Barack Obama's not president, but at the very least, he should have been charged with that. God knows people have been charged with less. I'd like to see them get to the bottom of his involvement in the Russiagate hoax. I'm not sure that the evidence, at least the evidence that we've seen so far, is compelling enough to actually levy a charge. Not like it is with Brennan and Schiff. And then, you know, Stephen, forgive me for jumping the gun a little bit, but charging Hillary Clinton with a felony just seems too good to be true. I mean, that's kind of all what all of us want to see as an end game. But on many of these crimes, the statute of limitations has expired. She should have been charged with espionage, at the very least, just for having the email server. But you see, that's another dirty little secret of Washington, something I learned when I was on the staff of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. They all use private servers. John Kerry, I was working for John Kerry on the Foreign Relations Committee. John Kerry's email address was not, John Kerry at senate.gov. It was an AOL, a personal AOL email address. And he would demand that we send him classified memos to his AOL account. Well, that's an espionage charge for both of us. Wow. But that's just the way it's done. And they all do it, all of them. And that's why they didn't go after Hillary Clinton for that email server.
They're like, oh, dang, we'll all be in trouble.
Oh, they would all go down. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. one of those he who's without sin casts the
Exactly.
first stone, and they're
Yeah,
like,
they're all
"Ooh,
crooks,
we're
everyone.
all guilty of that one."
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. Is it true that John Brennan approved the visas for some of the 9/11 hijackers, and that the CIA was secretly trying to recruit them behind the back of the White House?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Brennan ordered that the hijackers be given visas. He wasn't physically standing in the visa section in the consular unit at the embassy in Riyadh, but yeah, the operation was to allow those guys into the United States so that they could be recruited. The CIA never told the FBI that they were trying to recruit the hijackers. And the FBI never told the CIA that they had arrived in the United States. There was this complete disconnect. And as a result, they got away with everything that they got away with. No, he didn't meet them behind the White House. There was an attempted meeting, or it was a cutout meeting in San Diego, and nothing came of it. We know that because of testimony to the before the 9/11 Commission. But yeah, Brennan, at the very least, needs to answer questions, and he refuses to answer questions. What was the plan to allow these people, when you, even if you didn't know they were planning 9/11, you knew they were planning something big, right? You knew it. So why allow them in the country? I mean, we kill people for far less than that, far, far less than that. Why allow them in the country? Why not cooperate with the FBI? The FBI has arrest powers. You know, these guys are planning the massacre of thousands and thousands of Americans. Arrest them. But no, he just let the whole operation go forward. And then after 9/11, he was instrumental in the creation of the torture program. There's nothing good about this guy at all. I've known John Brennan for 35 years. There's nothing good about this guy. And he frankly was in over his head intellectually. You know, he had a rabbi in George Tenet, and George made him who he was. He was a nobody when I joined the CIA. He was a GS-14, deputy group chief. Big deal. But George loved him, and George made him into somebody, even though he couldn't handle it intellectually. And look where we are now.
Yeah. Wow. Do you think that there's not an appetite to get to the bottom of what happened on 9/11 because too many people in the Washington, D.C. area and surrounding areas in Maryland became uber wealthy because of 9/11, the Middle East wars, and Afghanistan?
Yeah, I say that all the time. Before 9/11, the heaviest concentration of millionaires anywhere in America was in Silicon Valley, California, Northern California. Post 9/11, the heaviest concentration of millionaires per capita is the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Everybody got rich thanks to 9/11. But I think that the release of information, like getting to the bottom of 9/11, would be uncomfortable, not just for people on Capitol Hill or at the FBI and the CIA, but in the halls of, the Saudi royal palace, the Israeli prime minister's office. A lot of people would be called on the carpet. And I think that there's just no stomach in Washington to wrecking those relationships.
Okay. Well, interesting. All right. In the last, I think, 48 hours, a new document came out where it looks like Clapper was trying to compel the head of CIA, FBI, NSA to all get on the same page with this Trump's a Russian agent story. But the head of the NSA, Navy Admiral Mike Rogers, said, "We're not seeing what you're seeing. Our intel doesn't say the same thing. My office doesn't feel comfortable accusing Donald Trump of being a Russian asset. We need more time on this." And they just kept pressuring him to sign on to that. Gratefully, he didn't. These documents are here. They're a little bit hard to read, but your thoughts on the head of the NSA saying, "Whoa, we're not seeing the same story at all. We're not going along with it." And then is this why CIA basically ran the whole operation with all of the
Yes.
top people?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I've always liked and respected Mike Rogers. He was a terrific NSA director, and that's why he's not around anymore. He was, I've said this 1,000 times. When I was at the CIA, we were trained to follow the intelligence. Okay, you can't just come up with a conclusion and look for the intelligence to support your conclusion. That's the opposite of what it should be. You should gather all the intelligence and let it lead you to the story. That's not at all what they were doing on this Russiagate case. John Brennan at the time was telling everybody in Washington who would listen to him that he wanted to be Secretary of Defense. And he was going to be Secretary of Defense under President Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton was going to be president if they could stick Donald Trump with this tar baby called Russiagate. And when NSA said, we're not seeing any evidence that this is true, then they just made it up and ran with it without NSA. It was as simple as that. That's why I keep calling this a coup attempt. They were trying to deny the voters of the United States the right to elect a candidate of their choice.
Wow. Okay, so Brennan Brennan wants to go from CIA
to DOD
to the head of the Pentagon, and Adam Schiff wants to go from a lowly congressman from California that really lived in Maryland.
That's right.
And be the head of the CIA. I'm telling you, these guys got together and conspired to unseat. This is a coup against Donald Trump. Wow.
It was a coup. Yeah, that's right. And, it gives you an insight into the narcissism that fuels Washington, too. It's just astounding. And it's like, it's not specific to one party or the other. It's everybody. You have to be a narcissist to succeed in politics. You have to be. My attorney said something to me the other day. We've been friends for decades. And he's a former deputy attorney general of the United States under Reagan. And he said, one of the things I like about you is you've been in this city for 43 years, and you still think that people do things because they're the right thing to do. He said, that's very amusing to me.
Yeah. Well, that says a lot about you. I got caught up in some stuff several years ago, and I said to my wife 2 years later, it didn't cross my mind that these people could lie and cheat. And she said, that's why they got you, And I was like, oh, dang it. Yeah.
It's a sport in Washington to ruin people's lives. Like Harry Truman said, if you want a friend in Washington, get a dog.
Wow. Okay. Final question for you. What is 0 Dark 30? I was reading about this CIA using Hollywood to push propaganda through entertainment. What was that?
0 Dark 30 was a film that came out in 2012, directed by Catherine Bigelow, who won an Academy Award for it, and written and produced by Mark Bowl, who also won an Academy Award for it. It was a shoot 'em up pro-American propaganda film that perpetuated the lie that the CIA's torture program led to the location of Osama bin Laden. Okay, it's a lie. Great analysis led to the location of Osama bin Laden. But that aside, that's not the controversy. The controversy was that the CIA worked with the studio hand in glove to get this movie made. They invited Catherine Bigelow and Mark Bowl to the CIA headquarters building. The deputy director of the CIA, Mike Morrell, gave them a classified briefing over a classified mock-up of the bin Laden compound, allowed them classified briefings from analysts from the CIA's Counterterrorist Center, and in return, those analysts and senior CIA officers were given tickets to the movie's premiere in LA. And if you couldn't make the premiere, they were given watches. Okay, all of that's illegal. All of it. It's bribery. It's violations of the Espionage Act. Literally every part of that story is illegal. Felonies. And then to make matters worse, after bin Laden was killed, Leon Panetta, who at the time was the director of the CIA, went on to become Obama's second Secretary of Defense, invited Bull and Bigelow to an attaboy victory party in the CIA auditorium called the Bubble. In the Bubble, he gave a classified speech, and he outed the names of the Navy SEAL Team 6 officers who killed bin Laden. Well, that leaked to the media. And then what they did at the CIA was they issued an apology. They said that Panetta didn't know that uncleared people were in the audience, which was a lie. He had invited them. And then not only did they redact the names of the SEAL Team 6 officers, they redacted another 27 lines from the ostensibly unclassified attaboy speech that he gave. Now, that's multiple violations of the Espionage Act right there. Remember, providing national defense information to any person not entitled to receive it. I followed this from prison, and I hand wrote on a legal pad an op-ed, and I sent it to the Los Angeles Times, and they ran it, saying Leon Panetta should be in prison.
Wow.
But again, when you're part of the in crowd, you can do anything you want and get away with it. Classified briefings, get a Rolex in return, get a trip to LA, some fancy Hollywood premiere. Don't worry about revealing classified information. You can do it. Nobody's going to say anything to you. And that's exactly what happened.
Because I've been seeing some of the SEAL Team 6 people that are still left. They're going on podcasts, but before that, they didn't do that. So
never. You didn't even know there was a SEAL Team 6 back in the day.
Yeah. So they're just like, all right, we've already been unmasked. Yeah. We might as well just come out and tell the story, yes. Be American heroes. I wondered why they were going around. That seems so weird to me.
Well, you know why? They're doing it because Robert O'Neill, who claims to have killed Osama bin Laden, has made a very handsome living selling his autograph on covers of Time magazine with bin Laden on it, on bin Laden wanted posters. The guy has made a mint. He's gotten rich just by selling his autograph. But there are two other members of SEAL Team 6 who both claim that they killed Osama bin Laden, that Robert O'Neill was 3 men back at the bottom of the steps, while the other 2 were at the top of the steps shooting bin Laden. So the truth is, we don't have any idea who killed Osama bin Laden because 3 different guys say it was them. O'Neill has been the most vocal. That's why the other 2 are coming out saying, no, it was me. Gotcha. It was not the other guy.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, John, I know you've got a lot going on today, 4 different interviews. I appreciate your insight. I really hope, I know Trump wants to do this. Everybody that I hear, Alex Jones says he is pushing them, do this, do this, do this. Hopefully Pam Bondi and Congress, when they come back from recess, my understanding is behind the scenes, they're talking to each other saying, we've got to remove Adam Schiff. We didn't know how bad it was with Adam Schiff. So hopefully we see something come of this, but I wanted to get your unique insight on that.
Thank you.
If people want to follow you, stay in touch with what you're saying, where can I point them?
Oh, thank you. A bunch of different places. I'm on Substack, John Kiriakou. I'm on Twitter, @John Kiriakou, Facebook. I've got a show on Unified TV. And where else? I'm kind of like all over the place.
Search your name.
It's easy to find me. Okay. Easy to find me. Oh, and you know what? Most importantly, I've got my own podcast, I should say. I have 2 of them. I have Deep Focus with John Kiriakou and Deprogram with Ted Rawl and John Kiriakou.
Okay, great. Well, I will find links to all of those and make it very easy. We'll have you on again. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
My pleasure. Thank you. You too.